Welcome, everybody, to our regular scheduled city council meeting. Today's August 20th, 24 at 6 p.m., and I'll call this meeting to order, and let's begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Every time now. Yeah.
I'm glad you got out to a
Just don't say amen.
I tried to say it quietly. All right, Barb, you want to read the open meeting statement for us?
This meeting and all meetings of the Common Council are open to the public. Proper notice has been posted and given to the media in accordance with Wisconsin state statutes, so the citizens may be aware of the time, place, and agenda of this meeting.
Thanks, and you want to also take roll?
Mayor Smith,
Here.
Colin Dykstra,
Here.
Paul Hagan,
Here.
Eric Halverson,
Here.
Dimitri Martin,
Here.
Paul Mayo,
Here.
Corey Nagel,
Here.
Eric Olson,
Here.
Dave Peterson,
Here.
Scott Perchatsky,
Here.
Henry Veliker.
Here.
10 present, we have a quorum.
And you want to start the introduction of the department heads?
Barb Nowak, City Clerk.
Aaron Jensen, City Administrator.
Matt Klatt, Airport Manager.
Eric Bailey, Library Director.
Jared Kivila, Community and Economic Development.
Stephanie Reif, Finance Director.
Justin Behrens, Director of Public Works.
Laura Colbert, Park and Rec Director.
Brian Hosell, Chief of Police.
All right, thank you. Next up, then, we have the consent agenda. This is for items that we're going to take with one motion, unless you see something on that consent agenda that you would like to vote on separately, and then we would move it to the regular agenda. Anybody see anything they would like moved? If not, we're looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Olson, second by Dykstra, that we approve the consent agenda as printed. Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against, say no. Motion carried. Under the regular agenda, we do not have any additions to that, so again, we would just be looking for a motion to approve.
Move to approve. Second.
Motion by Martin, second by Dykstra, that we approve the regular agenda as printed. Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against, say no. Motion carried. Under, on page 101 of your packet, we have a proclamation. National Sea Tracks Think Train Week. That proclamation is in there for your reading. We recognize this proclamation. Next up, we have public input. This is for non-agenda items. If there's anybody that would like to speak on a non-agenda item, please step up to the podium, give your name and address for the record. Limit your time to 3 minutes or less. Or if there are any staff or council. Henry, go ahead.
Mayor Smith and Council, where do I start? It was a fantastic weekend and week in the city. I just wanted to extend heartfelt thank you to all the staff who helped with the triathlon and the departments. I know it's a pretty heavy lift once a year for the couple of departments to support our event, so I really appreciate that. Just a reminder, Council, the triathlon does pay the city for the extra staff and time to support our event, so we're really appreciative of that help. And then I would also like to thank the mayor and the council and the staff for your support while our friends from Mitoyo City were here. They had a nice visit. We got them off to the airport yesterday quite early. We all mustered up at the high school at 5 a.m. But anyways, I believe they're home and they're home safe. So wanted to just say thanks. It was a nice visit.
Yeah, thanks, Henry. It was a busy week last week and a fun week to be in Waupaca. Of course, every week is fun to be in Waupaca. Any other public input? All right, let's go to community department head reports. I see that we have Joe Drake is here tonight to report on Waupaca for the Waupaca Arts and Culture Network. Joe, you want to just introduce yourself and pull that mic up high enough for you too there.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Joe Drake, and you may have seen me around the city a little bit because I am interning right now with the IT and community media department, which has been a lot of fun, and I've really enjoyed that experience so far this summer. Right now, I am going into my senior year at UW Stevens Point, and I'm here today to talk about the podcast that I produce and host called Waupaca. Waupaca is a part of the Waupaca Arts and Culture Network. A quick update on the network is that the Yuletide Trail planning has started, and planning for this year's event is in progress. Waupaca joined the network a little over a year ago, and it has been a great resource to be a part of this network. The podcast I run is not a nonprofit and isn't as large of an organization as some of the other organizations in the network, like the Arts Board or the city. But it has been very helpful not only to me, but also to the podcast I run to learn from these other organizations and learn from both what works for them and what doesn't work for them. The podcast I run, Waupaca, is a small town podcast that talks to a special guest each episode who positively impacts their small community in some way. We've gone to talk to anyone from doctors at Data Care to sitcom actresses like Kathy Kenny, who played Mimi on the Drew Carey Show. And we've also gotten to learn from people from the city of Waupaca and how their job impacts the community in a positive way. Right now, episodes are available on all podcast platforms, including Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and on YouTube. Right now, I am doing episodes as often as I can while being a college student, but it has been great to learn so much from both the Waupaca community and the other surrounding areas. That's all I got.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Joe made a presentation this morning and it lasted a little longer than that, sorry. Thanks, Joe. Anybody have any questions for him? All right, appreciate you
going.
coming.
Keep going.
Sorry, council, but I'm going, and staff, actually, I'm going to disappoint you. Since we have a committee of the whole meeting tonight, we're going to skip over department head reports and just move on to new business. So under new business, we have license report number 1686. This is for a Class B intoxicating liquor license and Class B fermented malt beverage license for M. Carlson LLC, which is at 2181 South Apple Tree Lane. Mason Carlson is the agent for this. So this is, Mason is just taking over the license that was by a previous person that ran this business. So they're just requesting that basically get transferred into this LLC, into this person's name and their LLC. All right, pretty straightforward. We'd be just looking for a motion to approve.
Move to approve. Second.
Motion by Peterson, second by Veliker, that we approve license report number 1686. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against, say no. Motion carried. All right, let's go on to Halloween on Main Street closures for Friday, October 25th, 2024. And I'll turn it over to Laura.
Thank you, Mayor. You can find the report on page 103. So last year and the year prior, last year we extended the road closure. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to get there right now. We expanded the road closure all the way to Water Street, and that was a really successful road closure. And if you look on page 104, you can see the map where everything in orange is closed for the event and everything in green is the detour routes. And because it was such a successful year, we expanded Touch a Truck down Water Street. We're going to maintain exactly the same road closures as we had last year. And that's, I guess the action is to approve the additional street closures along the detours.
Okay. So again, nothing really different than last year, so we'd, again, just be looking for a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Olson, second by Martin, that we approve the street closures for Halloween on Main Street, which is Friday, October 25th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against, say no. Motion carried. Still on the same theme as Halloween, Halloween on Main, temporary expanded premise and an open intoxicant request for Friday, October 25th, 2024. Laura, you want to
Yes,
get
thanks,
us
Mayor.
with that?
I'm doing this on behalf of the Chamber and CVB. So we are looking at page 105 for the memo, and page 106 shows the open intoxicant diagram. So anything within the purple dash lines, we are requesting for an open intoxicant from 4 to 8 p.m. And then when you go to pages 107 to 118, you can see a request from Doc Kelly's, Little Fat Gretchen's, Simpson's Restaurant, Salt and Belly, the Grand National Lounge, and the pub for an expanded alcohol license for the night of the event, and their subsequent maps that go along with their restaurants.
Okay. So, anybody have any questions on that? What year is this that we've done the Halloween?
This is the fourth.
Fourth year already? Okay.
And Chief Ozell has looked at this, and Mitch made adjustments according to Chief Ozell's recommendations.
Okay. If there's not any questions, again, we'd be looking for a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Motion by Hagan,
Second.
second by Veliker, that we approve the Halloween on Main temporary expanded premise and open intoxicant request for October 25th, 2024. Discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against, say no. Motion carried. All right, we have a lot lease on a new hangar, Steve Allen, lot number 21. Matt, your name is on this. Pretty straightforward, though?
Yep.
Okay. So we'd just be looking for approval to rent this, the city of Waupaca would rent this lot to Steve Allen.
Move to approve. Second.
Motion by Hagan, second by Dykstra, that we approve the lot lease for the new hangar for Steve Allen at lot number 21. Any discussion?
That's not the comedian Steve Allen, is it? Oh, yeah. Who knows that comedian? Only the old guys in
I
the
think
room.
he's probably not around anymore.
Anyways.
But yeah,
No, it's probably not.
yeah.
All right, thanks, Mayor.
Yeah, no, not that easy being a comedian, is it?
Oh,
Sorry. Heard that once from a comedian. We need to do a roll call. So we'll do a roll call vote.
Paul Hagan,
aye.
Eric Olson,
Aye.
Henry Belliker,
Aye.
Paul Mayo,
Aye.
Dave Peterson,
Aye.
Colin Dykstra,
Aye.
Dimitri Martin,
Aye.
Corey Nagel,
Aye.
Eric Halverson,
Aye.
Scott Perchatsky,
Aye.
10 ayes, motion carried.
All right, next up, Wisconsin Public Service easement at Waupaca International Airport. Who put that in there?
I did.
Okay,
Steve Allen,
Is
probably.
that not the right name? No.
Brunner Field, the Waupaca Airport, Brunner Field.
My apologies.
Okay, I didn't know if we were now doing trips to Mexico or something, or maybe Toronto.
Maybe
or-
somebody should call Google and let them know that their listing's incorrect. I could, all right, well, whatever. Can I go? May I go, please?
Yeah, it's not really your fault. Some of us should have caught that too, so, yeah. Go ahead.
This is a fairly straightforward easement agreement from WPS. We've done a number of these just within this last year. In previous years, this electrical easement is needed as they had to move some electrical underground utilities to make way for our sanitary sewer. And as such, it moves from the right-of-way into city Waupaca land, or more so the Waupaca Airport, or Brunner Field, that is. There is an easement, or an exhibit, of the easement on 132. That is temporary. It will get cleaned up, and they will have somebody go out there and actually verify that, update the legal description, and then record this at the county, so it'll be legally within city land. The terms of the easement are pretty straightforward. Basically, it gives them the right to maintain their facilities. They have to fix the grass when they disturb it. They have access. They don't need to ask permission for restoration or for maintenance, and it's pretty straightforward, but they do have to fix up their mess, so. With that, I'll open it up to questions or looking for approval of this document, of this easement document. Numbers and description are in the packet.
Okay. Any questions? You heard the recommendation from Justin that we allow the Wisconsin Public Service easement.
I'll
Motion?
move to approve the easement document.
Second.
Motion by Peterson, second by Olson, that we approve the easement for Wisconsin Public Service at the airport. Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Dave Peterson,
Aye.
Paul Hagan,
Aye.
Colin Dykstra,
Aye.
Scott Perchatsky,
Aye.
Eric Halverson,
Aye.
Henry Veliker,
Aye.
Dimitri Martin,
Aye.
Paul Mayo,
Aye.
Eric Olson,
Aye.
Corey Nagel.
Aye.
10 ayes, motion carried.
All right, next up is on page 134, license report number 1687. We have some names of some people that are going to get an operator's license, if you approve that. Again, we'd be looking for a motion to approve.
Move to approve license report number 1687.
Second.
Motion by Veliker, second by Hagan, that we approve license report number 1687. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Again, say no. Motion carried. All right, don't forget communications, recommendations of the mayor. Don't forget that we're having a meeting right after this to talk about, what are we talking about tonight? Capital. Okay. So, thank you. Did you have something?
Yeah,
Eric?
I just was curious, was it a mistake, the pictures on 49? What is that?
Did I miss
Seems out of
something?
place.
Oh, this is, I think, attached to Laura's report. In her report, she noticed, or she made note of the project they're working on at Lakeman Field, and that is a
okay.
rendering of the concessions.
I guess I need to read her report closer. Sorry, Laura. Okay, thank you.
So, committee of the whole meeting, capital improvements, is right after this. Anybody else have anything for the good of the meeting? We would be looking for a motion to adjourn then.
Move to adjourn.
Second?
Motion by Hagan, you almost lost your job. Second by Olson. To adjourn, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against, say no. Motion carried. Aaron's gonna make the presentation, based on the information that he handed out. It will also be on the screen. Department heads will chime in on their projects and tell you why they believe that, these are projects that need to be done. And Barb is correcting me, we need to formally, start this committee of the whole meeting, so I'll call this meeting to order. In attendance are all of our city council members plus the mayor. We are looking for a motion to approve the agenda with these two handouts that that Aaron gave us.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Olson, second by Peterson, that we approve the agenda for the committee of the whole meeting. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against, say no. Motion carried. All right, so we're down to the 2025 budget workshop session number 1, which is for capital improvements. All right, it's all yours, Aaron.
Thank you, Mayor Smith and city council members. First, I want to start off by saying the 2 handouts that you did just receive are also, it's the same information that's in this packet. We just highlighted a few things. We know the numbers are really small, and there's a lot of numbers, so we wanted to give you a little better chance to follow along with what we will be talking about tonight. As you can see in the packet on page 2, there's a kind of little cover memo. It just gives a quick recap of what our progress was, what have we completed within the 2024 GO bond projects, and if they did fall within budget or not. If you were able to take a look at that, not sure if you have any questions, we would be happy to answer those questions. But one thing, obviously the most impactful project that I want to note in there is the Public Works facility. That was done over multiple years, not just 2024, but there was a borrow associated with that, and that came in under budget. Can you please, Stephanie, just remind me that number, that exact number?
It's about 8.8 million.
8.8 million. We had about 9.3 million budgeted. So as an overall project, that turned out to be obviously what we hope to be a great facility for a number of decades, and that is all closed out. I'm going to talk about that a little bit, the savings, because some of that savings is going to have a lot to do with what some of our strategy is and how we plan for projects moving into the next several years. So, city staff, you know, I want to thank a lot of people in just at least getting to this point. And I want to remind City Council, this is not the final point. The capital budget will get, it'll get approved when you guys approve the entire budget, which is typically November. Tonight, we put together a proposal in working with, obviously, Finance, Mayor Smith, and the department heads who did have to do a lot of work to get to this point, to basically create something that we believe meets what City Council, what their priority is with our capital projects. And ultimately, that is to reflect a growth in our debt service fund levy that is much closer to level and much closer to our natural growth than we saw a year ago. So we'll explain that in a second. We want to continue to keep up with as many projects as we can afford while keeping that financial constraint in mind. And we'll tell you how we plan to do that. So because we're looking at an annual borrow of less than we have done in the past, and this has been done in the past too, when working with R.W. Baird is suggesting that we do a 2-year borrow. Because if we're around that $1 million annual mark, doing it every single year, there are fees associated with that process in which it makes more sense to do a 2-year borrow. So we're really looking at doing a borrow for 2025 and 2026 projects and borrowing for that in the spring of 2025. You can see in my memo that we have right now where our projects fall. We have that would be averaged annually of about 1.057 million, so just over $1 million annually, and just over $2.1 million in total for the projects that we have listed. And department heads will have a chance to go through each of those projects. By the way, R.W. Baird, typically they are here for this. We reached out to them like a month ago. This must be a very popular meeting night in the state because they are split at 2 different communities tonight doing this exact same presentation. So we're going to get through this, but please know that if you have any questions specific to R.W. Baird that I cannot answer, they're willing to come to any meeting between now and November too. So. The other priority that I did not mention that we assumed to be true, and we can talk about that tonight, is we also wanted to position ourselves to take advantage of 2 large grants that we were awarded. One is the Fulton Street project, and that again is from Main Street to Harrison Street. that in this budget we have for 2027. So you'll see Justin will talk about, there are some expenses that we have to incur in 2005, 2026, but not the major expense. The major expense would be 2027, because that is when construction would be planned for that. Again, that's a 50-50 grant that we were awarded, and that's the Local Roads Improvement Program. The other one is the pedestrian bridge that, as we know, has been closed for well over 15 years, I believe. And that we were also awarded a TAP grant, or a Transportation Alternatives Program grant, through the Wisconsin DOT. That one actually covers 80% of the project cost, and the city would have a contribution of 20%. That would be a 2028 project in this budget. So again, not talking about the bulk of those being borrowed for upcoming, but we do have to start planning for them. All right, let's get to the really small numbers. Okay, this is a sheet that, and kind of projections that we work with R.W. Baird on. City Council, I know you are pretty familiar with seeing these each year, and sometimes in the middle of years. To simplify things, what we're going to focus on is we're going to focus on the very far right column, of course not the year, but the one that is labeled total combined debt, debt service. Zoom in even more. So you can see there in 2024, our total combined debt service is the $1,662,122. This was the conversation we had as a city council last year during budget season, and we had to make that big jump to get to that point. We made about close to a right around a $500,000 jump in debt service levy to get on pace to where we could do it more gradually over time. Now, you can see kind of where that has to go with some assumptions, and those assumptions are a $1 million borrow per year, with the exception of 2027 and 2028. 2027 and 2028 would be $2 million annual borrows, and that would allow us to do the bigger Fulton Street project and the pedestrian footbridge. Now, I also want to mention that the numbers you see there, you can see it says levy supported in the parentheses. That's not necessarily the case. What I'll tell you is that what those numbers are, those would be our total principal and interest payments for that given year. But when we get to the bottom of this packet, you'll see our debt service fund worksheet. And we do have some tools within that debt service fund that we can use to make it so that our levy does not match those exactly, and we can grow at a slower pace than you see there through 2033. So we'll get to that in a little bit. The other thing that is worked into this assumption, if you remember, we had a note anticipation note that helped fund the Public Works facility. When we found out when we were in that high inflationary period, prices came back at more than we expected originally. And that note anticipation note is set to convert to GO bonds in 2025. So we talked about the approximately $500,000 of savings in the Public Works facility. Well, over time, staff has done a good job of managing projects and budgeting for projects and coming in under budget on a number of those projects. So right now, there's a fund balance of about $1.3 million that we can apply, and what this is R.W. Baird's suggestion and proposal, apply that directly to that note anticipation note before converting it. So that will come off the note anticipation note, and that will lower our principal and interest payments over time. The reason that they plan or they're suggesting that is because that is something that's converted to something that's paid off over GO notes that are paid off over 20 years. Typically, we try to keep it to 10 years, so that will save us the most money over time. So know that that is one thing that is helping these numbers.
What is the approximate balance of the note, anticipation note?
$3.745 million. The other assumption that made is the assumption at borrowing at 4% every year. So this is another graph that City Council is very used to seeing, and this is our GO debt capacity against our city policy, which is it cannot exceed 3.75% of our equalized value. So preliminary numbers just came out again on August 1st, and our equalized value rose about 6%. I expected those to be certified. They said they were going to certify them by August 15th. I've not seen that final note yet, but we're assuming that is correct. And that has given us a lot more capacity than we had three years ago or 4 years ago when we were looking at this. Now, that's great. It's great to have the extra capacity in case it is a priority to utilize that capacity. However, when we're working as a staff and as Mayor Smith over the next couple of years, that's good to know, but it's not necessarily changing anything that we're proposing. Because even if we decide to dip into that capacity, so to speak, that is going to cause us to have a higher debt service levy and taxes to be higher. And with kind of the increase last year, we wanted to make it a goal to not have that happen over the next few years. So what you're looking at here is the black is the existing principal outstanding. That's about $15 million. And then the 2025 GO promissory notes, you can see. Now that would be a combination of the borrow that we are suggesting, the 2-year borrow, and then also the 3.7 million minus the 1.3 million because of the direct payoff that would be converted from the note anticipation note to the GO. And then you can see the hypothetical future borrows in green at the assumptions we discussed. Does anyone have any questions on this before I continue? So overall, yeah, sorry. Oh, sorry. Cal, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. You were saying that the equalized value for this year was up 6%. I think your estimate was, what, 3 or 4 or less yet?
No, so the equalized value is not something in any of the projections you've seen that I have estimated.
Okay.
Because it doesn't impact a lot of the things that we talk about.
All right. I guess I was wondering if that means that the debt service levy is spread out over a larger amount of people or properties, and hence the levy itself per thousand of equalized value goes down. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's a great question, and the answer to that is no. So what we don't have yet, Colin and council members, is we don't have our actual assessed value. So the equalized value, now that will impact City of Waupaca residents, tax or property taxpayers, because though we grew at 6%, we grew at a less rate than Farmington, Dayton. Farmington was 22%, Dayton was 16%. So we should pay less of a portion of the school district and county taxes.
Okay.
But when it comes to like the direct city tax, Colin, that will be the assessed value. And we always have to wait for the manufacturing assessed value to come to us, and that doesn't happen for another month or so.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions on this? This, again, we're going to focus, this is the sewer revenue financing plan. Oh, and I'm now realizing I forgot something else. I'm going to again zoom in on the far right. And this is something that, when we look at that 1.83 in 2024, 2.14, so these ratios, if you can remember, in both the water and the sewer, we always aim to keep these ratios above 1.1 debt service coverage ratio. So the sewer is still looking pretty healthy. This is assuming no rate increase for 2025. I know that Jay and our auditor had, I think, made special note of that. We have not had a rate increase since 2014. There certainly is an argument to increase rates every so often for cost of living and inflation standards and all of that. I can tell you that, that's a discussion that can happen amongst council. It wouldn't necessarily be needed this year to cover those ratios or to cover operational costs. But I wanted to show you what this looks like. And Justin's going to go through all of the sewer revenue bond projects a little later in this meeting too. What is not included in this packet is a water revenue bond chart. The reason for that this year is that our water revenue bond, or our water projects are fairly minimal, and it would not make, and now we have extra capacity in our GO. It doesn't make a lot of sense to borrow water revenue through water revenue bonds for that minimal of amount. It makes more sense to borrow through GO bonds because our GO bonds are rated. As we talk about our ratings, this last year our rating actually got upgraded. When our ratings get upgraded, we get better rates. Now, it's important to note that if we do that, and all of the other projections had that counted in, so that also counted the water in this. If we do that, the general fund, or the debt service levy amount, we don't have to tweak our debt service levy to cover those extra water projects. The water utility can cover those through the water revenues that they have. So I will tell you that when we get to the utility budgets, we will talk likely about a water increase, a water rate increase. We've talked about simplified rate cases in the past. That is probably going to be a recommendation for the water utility, and that right now is at 4%, but it can handle the borrows. So any questions on that?
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't, you or Stephanie have this, but when we were doing the planning for the Public Works facility, we know the utilities are kicking in for that debt service. What are the percent? Is it 50, 25, 25? Are the utilities still going to contribute to the payment of the Public Works facility?
Yes.
Yes. So what we did though is we funded, because we grew in our capacity, we funded it all through GO notes. And what that allows us to do, it allows us to charge rent to the water utility for being in there. And we're counting on approximately $50,000 a year in rent.
This is just a general observation. I don't know where council is on timing of any of these projects, and I don't know, the financial consultant would have to weigh in for sure, get their opinion. But is there a way we could structure this where the utilities sort of carry some of these front end, a little bit more of the cost for a few years, and get them on a payment schedule so where maybe the end of the terms are paying less than the 50, but it gives us the ability to maybe move a project up quicker. I know you got a plan for a project, and major projects take multiple years, but is there a way? It's just a general if we think timing, we need to move something up. Could we do something like that to maybe facilitate some of these projects at quicker time frame?
So, Henry, can I ask you a question? I'm just if we pointed to the Fulton Street project, for example, that right now is slotted for 2027, are you asking if we kind of change the strategy for what funds, what could we push that up? Let's say.
Well, and I'm looking at like the pedestrian bridge. I mean, we're talking 4 years out. I mean, I don't know if that's a priority for the other members of council or not, but yeah, that's my thought is if, I mean, for lack of a better example, utilities kick in $100,000 each year for 5 years, and then 25,000 for the rest of the term of the bond for the public works facility. But then it gives us some money now if timing required. We'd like to see these projects happen quicker. And again, I know you have to do planning and it, you know.
So, I think the short answer is that, to that is, we're open to anything, you know, I mean, right? I mean, city council should be open to anything to make sure that these projects go forward. We also have to look at, what makes the most sense to do that. I just keep thinking out loud, this is more of an accounting mind than, or a tax mind than anything. I know that's not always true, but remember that the water is controlled by
PSC.
the PSC, and I'm not sure that they're going to say it's okay if we collect $100,000 in rent for the next 5 years and only $25,000 for rent the next 5 years. I'm not sure that they would approve that, but those are discussions we certainly can have if it makes sense to do that.
Well, because I know, at least my memory, I think I'm correct on this, is when you're setting rates, they don't care what kind of reserves you have, what kind of fund balance you have. You could be very healthy, and they don't take that into account at all in rate making. So I don't know. But,
Paul, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I was just in support of Henry's comment that it would not necessarily work for water, but the sewer fund could certainly front end some higher payments, and we could adjust the sewer fund's payments for these projects.
Well, that makes it a little more problematic, though, because sewer is not in the public works building.
Oh.
You know, I mean, minimal, maybe. Are they paying anything towards public works?
The vac truck is in there.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, we got one vehicle in there.
yeah, I get
So,
it.
water, yes, but, yeah, okay. Not to shoot things down,
Yeah,
I'm just trying to.
understood.
Cold, hard facts are
Yeah.
pretty tough.
Well, and did I hear the Fulton Street, or there's some connecting highway money that we can get from the DOT, but it's 2033?
Right.
So I don't know how how do you marry that up? And we're looking to do Fulton in 27.
Yeah. So that's a good.
How do you do that?
So this is what Henry's referring to, and this is a little off topic, but not really, but it's relevant. Justin and I had a meeting with the Wisconsin Department of Transportation, and they have budgeted to redo another section of Fulton Street and Highway 49, which would be Harrison Street, from North Street to the McDonald's intersection or Northwestern Avenue, but that's out there. It's 2033 that would happen. That would require the city to chip in 25% for design work, but the state would cover 100% of reconstruction costs unless we decided to do above and beyond their standards. So to answer your question, Henry, it's actually great timing that we found that out, because through the design process, we can stay in touch with the DOT, go through our design process for everything towards Main Street from Harrison Street. And it was a really big positive is how we took it, but it's not going to happen at the same time.
Can that road last 9 more years?
That's another question that
Would it be better to just do as cheap a overlay as we can to get by? I mean, get 10 years life out of something, do it now, not think too much about it?
Okay, so, thanks, Henry. Yeah, let's, it's not gonna happen in 25 or 26. So, and I don't disagree. I drive that road every day, and we've done that overlay a couple times, and we can certainly have that discussion. It's not in the plan to do in 25 or 26. So let's get back to 25 and 26 and talk about that right now. But again, all good discussion that we need to have. Fulton Street has always been a heavily used road that needs major attention, and we're finding out that within the next 10 years, we might have that all solved. So I think that's all right. So.
Agreed. Okay. So next, you'll see the pages that you'll see on the screen right now. This is just kind of introductions of our capital plan, what some of the capital plan definitions mean, all of that. These are things that council you have seen in the past, so I won't go over every detail of that. I will jump to what our list is from a funding source standpoint, and this will be a great opportunity for the department heads to go through their projects. I know I did highlight it. Okay. And this is also in front of you. This is one of your handouts. So we are going to do this by funding source. So the first one we'll talk about is the GO bonds and what we plan to fund with our GO bonds. And then we'll move into the water, which will also be funded by GO bonds. And then we'll move into the sewer, which will be sewer revenue bonds. The first one I'll take, the T-hanger building. You'll see we have $110,000 for that in 2025. This is money that, if we just scroll up a little bit, that's our contribution. If you go to the very top, you can see $1.48 million. So our contribution for those T-hangers is $110,000, and then the BOA is contributing $1.48 million. Again, this T-hanger building, we have a waiting list of, Matt, please remind me of the waiting list.
I think we're up to 29 right now.
So, and then this will be an 8-unit?
9-unit.
9-unit, thank you. So we have a waiting list of 29. This gets us at least 9, and it will drive rent revenue up about $25,000 a year, moving our airport fund closer to being self-sustaining. So that is that. Next, I believe, Jared, you have the next one.
I do. So the next one is labeled as professional planning services. The second one down, and it's labeled for 2025 for $10,000. So this is something we had for 2024 as well. Being in the planning department, we do our very best to try to pre-plan projects and work with the other departments where different things need to be done. However, we have continued to find and see that there are always projects that pop up or studies that we were not anticipating that need to be done, that do need to be done for a development. So an example would be a housing study that needed to be done for the River North housing development. So that would be one example of what this could be used for. Other examples could include a hotel feasibility study. So as part of the ongoing development out in River North, as well as other areas within the city, this year we had looked into looking at what it would take to do a hotel, and come to find out, most hotels require a feasibility study to be provided to them to show that it's worth their while to even consider your community. So there's just multiple aspects that we can't always plan for. And so that is where I am requesting for my department $10,000 to have on hand for when those projects come up. Aaron, I don't know if you have any other topics to add, but I believe specifically for this year, part of that money is earmarked, kind of co-funded with the chamber for a hotel feasibility study that we're working through with them. So.
Okay. Thanks, Jared. Next, Justin, This is the beginning of the footbridge conversation.
Thanks, Aaron. So the footbridge, Fulton Street, which has already been alluded to, we are receiving outside funding. We are going to start planning for both those projects next year. So we're going to look at it as a larger downtown project. So Fulton Street, think of it much like Main Street, that sort of process of starting the planning, getting some public input, feedback, getting an architect on board, multiple year process, and then eventually engineering would take over, work with DOT on civil and structural designs, and then eventually constructing both of those projects, which you can see are just further down the line. Henry kind of pulled the cat out of the bag a little early. There is another section of Fulton Street, but we were going to try and get through tonight. The next meeting, I will be bringing forward SMAs, state municipal agreements, basically for all of those projects and reviewing that in more detail. Basically, the cost share for the PED Bridge is at 80%. So what the numbers you're seeing there, the design and planning is 100% us. The construction, which is slotted for 2028, is an 80%. Fulton Street is, again, 100% design on us, but the construction, which is in 2027, is a 50%. Fulton Street, I have a note in there, it says Hillcrest to Main. Again, going back to Henry's question is, how does that all tie together? In my mind, the traffic patterns up to Hillcrest should be looked at and considered. When we do go past the Harrison intersection, that is 100% on us. And that's something, internally we will be working on and try to make a best fit. And again, trying to figure out a paving section that'll last another 9, 10 plus years till the next project comes along. So, should I keep rolling?
Yeah, I think you have a couple more here.
Yeah, Elm Street. This has been on our radar for actually a number of years. It was pushed back. Was that last year, 2 years ago? As again, it was kind of slashed or pushed back, I should say. Slashed is not the right word. Excuse me. Just the funding. There's multiple layers to Elm Street. It is the pavement section from 49 back into Holbeck. We're also replacing water. We're extending sewer to new customers. We're expanding bike and ped accommodations. And then, of course, we talked about recently is making that new connection underneath the railroad. So there's a lot to that project. That 525 is just the roadway items that you're seeing. You'll see it later in the packet with the sewer and water share. The next one's also me, seal coating roads. This I have on basically as a maintenance plan for every other year, doing roughly $30,000 of seal coating. We just did Commercial Drive. That was roughly 14,000 square yards of seal coating. It's a very cost-effective maintenance in my mind. It extends pavement up to 10 years, and it's just something we should definitely be doing more often.
I know we're going to jump to Josh now, but before we do, I just want to expand on something that Justin started to say. We wanted to go through this and be able to show City Council kind of what the overall financial plan was and how we plan to fit Fulton Street and the Ped Bridge in before we brought the state municipal agreements forward. So in order to officially accept those awards, that will come next council meeting. And Justin will provide more detail on those, but we wanted to show it in the confines with the bigger plan tonight. So you'll see those again next couple weeks from now. All right, Josh.
The first item on there is annual computer replacement. We have $11,000 in capital each year to replace computers on a rotating basis. That amount allows me to replace about 10 to 14 computers per year. The IT department's fiscally responsible for about 120 computers. Next year, we would be looking at replacing City Hall computers, and then in 26, the police department. The next item on there is the Adobe Acrobat Pro software upgrade. We use Adobe Acrobat Pro for, I know that's used a lot for redaction on record requests going out. That's for putting together meeting packets, editing PDF files, creating forms, things like that. We've got that installed on 20 computers. The version we're on Adobe stopped supporting in June of 2022. So we don't get any more updates on that. And on our vulnerability scanning, that comes pretty high, that there's a lot of issues with that software. So we want to get onto the latest version of that. That's on 20 computers at $495 per computer. Security camera upgrades. So the city's got about 180 security cameras. We've got no replacement plan for those. Some of those date back to 2013, 2014. We did another round of them in 2017 at the rec center. And just like computers and other IT devices, they run software. At some point, the manufacturer no longer supports them. You don't get security upgrades. There's one brand and model that we're running that's got some security advisories with it where they suggest you consider replacing them. So this would get us some funding to replace about 40 to 50 cameras. And then the last thing on there is our general government servers. So we've got 3 main servers that run all the city's systems. We replaced those on a 5-year basis. Those operate 24/7, 365, house all of our data and software systems. So in 26, we're due to replace the server that powers just all the general government items. That includes the server itself and then all the software licensing to make sure we're on the latest versions of Microsoft software.
Okay, thank you very much, Josh.
Do we, are we looking at upgrading our security systems at all in light of some other government agencies in town that have been pretty catastrophically affected by hacking private businesses? Are we, raising our insurance? What?
So we've got a handful of things going on. So number one, you've seen the emails about getting multi-factor setups. So I'll take one step back. The city now has a cyber insurance policy. I think that started in July. Is that right?
July 1, yep.
So we've now got coverage which we haven't had before. That cyber insurance policy is kind of driving the first few things that you're going to see happen. So one, they're requiring us to do multi-factor on all email accounts, and that's in progress now. There's no cost to that. That's included in our subscription with Microsoft. The next step on that is putting multi-factor on all remote access to the city, and then I'm looking to take that a step further. We've got certain computers that access certain data that I think should be better protected, such as our accounting systems, our law enforcement software. So I'm looking in tandem with that on doing multi-factor on certain computers and laptops in the city that have access to that data. And then the third step on that is moving from endpoint protection software, more your basic antivirus, to more elaborate product managed detection and response, which kind of your endpoint protection, they download definitions, they're looking for certain things. Managed detection and response software is looking not only at that, but behaviors as well. It might see, hey, I see something happening on this computer that's just not normal, this doesn't seem right, and triggers some alerts. So it's the next step beyond. We have applied for a cybersecurity grant through the state. We will know mid-September if we're getting that or not. If we don't get that, then we're building that hopefully into the operations budget moving forward over each year. We're also looking at getting kind of the phishing email test system. There's some other education features with that. So yeah, we're looking into all that. That's just not going to be a capital request. We're either hoping for grant funding to kick it off and or operations budget money.
So we've covered that within our budget.
We're making, I'll say, some pretty big steps over the next year on this.
Josh mentioned insurance. We did have insurance. It was not adequate for some of the things we were seeing. And some of the requirements of having insurance is a lot of the things that Josh just mentioned too. So, all right. Any other questions for Josh? Okay. Next, who's taking this? Laura or Justin? South Park lift station replacements.
I'll gladly take it. So I met with the sewer department, and they had taken me down to South Park and showed me the lift station, and it's in dire need of repair. They're retrofitting it every year to get it to work correctly, and it's rusting out. And one of these years, it's just not going to fit anymore, and we're going to have a real issue. So they highly recommend that we replace it as soon as possible. It's already been a little bit of an issue during our super high user times, like the triathlon. There's been some times where it's failed slightly or gotten loose, and there has been some stuff on the sidewalk that we would rather otherwise not have. So this is definitely one of those really important things that we need to do. That's not a very pretty thing, but something that we need to do to function correctly.
And then also the replace Swan Park irrigation controller?
Yes, thank you. So in 1999, when Swan Park became a city park, that was the last time that we put a new irrigation controller in there. And so 25 years later, it's seeing its age. Josh Peterson is also going out there and fixing things often, and it's also showing its wear and tear. And it's going to be really nice to get a new irrigation controller out there. He's worried that it may not last another season the way that it is.
Okay, thanks, Laura. Any questions for Laura? Chief, Patrol Squad.
Yes, thank you, Aaron. For some of you that had not been on councils before 2018, our squad budget for maintenance was about $25,000 a year as to what we had budgeted. We went into a program where we're trying to get rid of our cars at 4 and 5 years. And by doing that, we've been able to reduce our squad maintenance budget from $25,000 to just under $15,000. And unfortunately, when COVID hit, it was hard for us to get some cars. And right now, we have a 2018 squad that needs to be replaced. And actually, last night it overheated. We're not sure what the problems are. Hopefully, it's something pretty simple. And then we also have two 2020s that we'll be getting rid of in the next year to year and a half. So that's where you're seeing 3 squads in the next 2 years for $170,000. And of that $170,000, and Steph, if you correct me if I'm wrong, I think we get about $65,000 in reserve from the sales of the other cars. That's going to help pay for 3 of those squads. And what we've been doing to try to keep the cars from the COVID is we're giving them to the PSLOs to use. So they're just taking them to and from school instead of them being out on the road all the time. So that's why we've been able to reduce the maintenance on that. So for this, these next purchases coming up, we're actually looking at going back to the Ford Explorers. Just because of the cost with the price and we're able to get them, there's about $7,000 difference in the prices between the Explorers and the Tahoes right now. So between those 3 cars, that would be about $21,000 that we're able to save. And then we're also able to take some of the equipment out of the current Explorers and transfer them into the new one. So we're able to save a little bit more money there. That's all that I have unless there's any questions in regards to them.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Moving on, rec center boiler replacements. Again, Laura or Justin?
So the boiler was put in 2005, and ever since I've been there, it's been failing. We've had to go into the boiler room and reset it often. It got so bad this year that during the Home and Garden Show, they had to go in about 10 times in one day to reset it. We are worried that it will go out in the middle of a very cold spell, and it could really compromise the pipes in the rec center and cause a huge issue. And we are also worried that it just may not last another winter based on its performance this last winter. So we need to get in there for that, $205,000 to get that replaced.
And I'll say that these boilers have been on our 5-year plan for more than 5 years. They were initially put on there, I want to say, sometime around the COVID years, and it was on the 5-year plan. We pushed it back at one point because we thought we didn't need to replace them, and then all of a sudden, more recently, with the recent issues, it is eminent that we need to do something now. So long story short, they were there, we pushed them back, we pulled them back up, and they're kind of where they were at the first place, so.
Will there be some funding opportunity maybe for that through energy, through the federal infrastructure money?
There'll be
or
some
whatever?
money through Focus on Energy for sure. The federal, I mean, that's more Greg's forte. Well, those are usually kind of long.
Yeah, because I think they're allowing local governments to be sort of treated like business, and you can get like a tax credit
Correct.
for it. So I don't know how much, but.
So, yeah, we have, we applied for a tax credit for the solar project on this roof, which was, I think, those are not things we're counting on.
Yeah.
It would kind of be extra on top if that works out. And I'll just make a comment on that item. This item has actually been on there for over a decade. When I was in the department, it was on the list, and we've pushed it off, I think, about as far as we can push it off.
Justin, in your justification on the capital improvement plan, it sounded like you were trying to get the funding in case they failed. But today it sounds like we're trying to get the funding because we want to replace it. Is that right?
They are showing signs of failure.
Okay.
I
guess my question is the verbiage in the justification old and you want to replace this, right? You just don't want to if it breaks, we'll fix it.
Yes, justification has not been updated like it should have.
Okay, that's fine.
Like I alluded to, we had it on there, pushed it back, now we're moving it back up.
That makes sense.
So,
all right, great.
Also, are these traditional natural gas boilers, or are you looking at more efficient, like heat pump type boiler? Has that been considered?
Yeah, so replacement will be newer, obviously brand new, the latest technology. So we'll be looking at to replace them with something that's more efficient and obviously way low maintenance.
So from last year's meeting, we had that at 175, and this is at 205. So did the cost, it went up that much in 1 year, $30,000?
Yes, those numbers are based on talking with our service reps, the ones who work on the boilers here at City Hall and in PD, and when you work well with people, then you can say, hey, we need a budgetary number. What do you think it could be? And this is, yes, so that's the jump that we've seen.
So we had that for 2027, and we also had new roof. But now I see that that's pushed out to 2028. So is that, are we pushing that off too? I mean,
Yes. It's the same thing. We come up with these plans based on our maintenance programs, and when we think it's the most effective time to replace them based on what we're seeing in our budgets and the reports and all that, and we try to make it fit the best we can. Sometimes we hit situations like this where it's, oh crap, we need to do it now. The roof, you hit the nail on the head, no pun intended. That one is just a reaction to the other projects that are in there. That's where we can fit it, and we will do our best with maintenance and our programs to try and make it last until then.
Well, and thankfully, we haven't had a leaky roof. So it's unlike the boiler that is showing that it needs to be replaced now. The roof has not been showing that.
I guess to Henry's point earlier about moving things up, let's not wait for the roof to fail. To me, that's a priority project, a roof on a building. But anyways.
And Justin and Laura, just correct me if I'm wrong, to that point, and I agree with what Corey's saying, if through our conversations, it sounds like that it's not a concern right now. Failure of that road.
Could be the next boiler, but I don't think it's a concern right now. But it's one of them things where it's very similar to this boiler. We expect 20 years out of it, so that's when we plan it. And you just never know when it's going to take a dive and it hits the point of no return. So. yes, Corey, I appreciate your sentiment, and we'll keep an eye on it. I mean, that's the life of a municipal planner.
Any other questions?
Just a comment, maybe. I guess to Corey's point, and Justin was saying, they put it where it fits, and I think that our goal as a city was to try and use our GO bonds to get these two projects that we were getting subsidized with in the time that was required for those, and that's predominantly why that's pushed, I think. So if you can make the roof work and that gets us on those other projects, I think that's a good thing to push that off. And so, anyway.
Okay.
If that's right. I think that's what you guys have said to us.
Yeah, I'll just use this as a time to talk about a couple things. This list was larger, when we started. The department heads did a great job of paring it down to where we're at today to meet the goals that I kind of talked about in the beginning. And I can tell you the things that we look at when we're prioritizing, we've heard this before. Some projects allow for us to take advantage of general transportation aids. So X amount of our capital projects should be general transportation aid qualifying projects. That's a lot of street work. So a big percentage of our capital projects is that. Another thing is the critical, general maintenance needs, right? And that the boiler is a good example of the critical general maintenance needs, or vehicles that are going to cause giant maintenance problems. And then another thing that's new this year that we were forced to talk about that we haven't had to talk about was some cybersecurity stuff. And that was kind of a new priority on it. So I think, Justin, I believe you have the last two, plow truck and mower, and then we'll get into the utilities.
Yep, so our plow truck, that 285 is a borrow. Further down, we were going to take $20,000 out of our reserve funds, our equipment replacement fund, just to try and, I guess, reduce the impact to the general obligation. The reason why we wanted this here, obviously, it's on a replacement. We're looking to have that replaced in 2025. Lead time on a truck and chassis is close to 24 months. So if we order this thing this November and December, which is our plan, we'll have to go through 2 more snow seasons. So it will be on the wrong side of 15 years old. Maintenance is creeping up on it. And then also, if we get this truck ordered before the turn of the calendar, there is additional emissions requirements that are going to be put on all large diesel engines. The price of this truck will increase. What we're being told by salespeople is, and our reps, figure about $30,000 increase for a truck we're looking for. So that's why we're pushing to get this approved with you guys and try to get this order in and in the queue before the end of the year. Our mower, something somewhat similar. I mean, it's 2010. It's just getting long in the tooth. We see the maintenance creep up. That is a 3-way share between street, sewer, and water. Street guys mow the grass at all the wells and out the lift stations. So we're just looking at dividing that cost up. So.
Okay. Now we're. Oh, yep, Henry.
I think it's just a typo. For Jared, the justification sheets on the wayfinding had the 25,000 in 2025 and 10,000 in 2026. What, is that correct? Or is it as it's shown here in 2028?
So there is a wayfinding item. If you go to the third page of this stapled packet, 25,000 is in 2025 out of the room tax fund, not out of borrowed dollars. So that's one thing. The $10,000, that might have been changed since that justification sheet was updated. Is that right, Jared?
Yeah, at one point that was in 2025, and then the professional. Actually, I thought they were both in 2025, but I could be mistaken. But yes, that was pushed back.
I see it. Thank you, Aaron. Okay. So maybe we've got to put 10 under 2026 room tax funds? Maybe?
Yeah, that certainly would be an option.
Okay. All right.
I'll make a little note on that too. Okay, any, I think I saw Corey's first, so.
Yeah, go ahead.
Corey.
I just wanted to make a general comment at this point in this section. Last year's workshop, the way that things were itemized by department was a lot easier to read. So I don't know if there was a software change or if these were just printed differently, but I know that the coding is on there, but it's nice to have the subheadings. I guess the other thing is, if we're looking at a 5-year projection, I get that a lot can change year to year, but it's hard to know what was added and what was dropped year to year. And I kind of feel like we have a 5-year projection, but the only thing that that I can say for certainty is what's on the 2025. Because I mean, I don't want to go through an itemized list, but there's a lot of things that seemed like they changed within a year, and I'm sure there's still a priority. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been on there last year. But it would just be nice to know from a council's perspective, are these things, did they get fixed? I mean, if they were several years out, what happened to them?
Mm-hmm.
So just two general comments about kind of the format of how the information is displayed that would help me better understand the direction that we're going. I don't have a problem with anything I heard tonight. It's just, it would help me better understand those things.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I did make notes on both of those. Yes, what was it? We'll have to kind of think about how to better communicate what was added and what was dropped. I will say that yes, last year we had 2 different lists. One was itemized exactly as you see it by funding source. That's what we use because it's easiest for us to financially plan that way. And then last year you did have it by department, and I actually made the call to remove it because I thought having 2 lists would be confusing, but I may be wrong. So I'd be happy to provide both next year. Cal?
Yeah. My understanding is that there's a 2-year borrow for this window of around 2.1 million of the GO bonds that we've just gone through, the highlighted items. There appears to be 1.5 estimated to be used in 2025 and about 500,000 the next year. So 3/4 the first year and 1/4 the next year. And there's a lot of good justifications for that. Both the police department and Justin said there's significant cost savings by getting their police vehicles and their truck early. But is there a concern, and have you talked about a concern of not having enough money for things that come up the following year if we can't do another borrow?
Yeah, I mean, I think like unforeseen things that are not on this list, that could happen. And I would say if that's happened and they're critical, and if we needed to borrow for them the following year, we could do that. It would, luckily we do have the capacity for that now, should that be a need. But it would truly be unforeseen if that was the case.
Okay.
Any other questions?
This probably goes in the category of beating a dead horse, but kind of feeling a little bit like Corey on understanding this Fulton Street stuff. What we're seeing tonight is really accomplishing from Main Street to Harrison Street. And taking advantage of the grant that we were able to secure, the LRIP. And then staff is thinking, well, to get us through and get the segment from Harrison to the top of the hill, let's say for sake of argument, that we're going to have to do something in the next 2 or 3 years to maybe bridge the gap to take advantage of this other state money. Is that a fair, am I saying that correctly?
So yeah, I think that's a great question. And you can see on the list, it says actually Fulton Street, Hillcrest to Main Street, which is not Harrison to Main Street.
Okay.
And what Justin did was he's planning for our match of the grant, which would be Harrison to Main Street. And then also, I know he did budget numbers to potentially, a Band-Aid is the wrong term probably, but to bridge that gap as you're suggesting. Justin, you can
Okay.
correct me if I said it in a way that you.
I think that's a good way of explaining it, yes.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Okay, any other questions before we move to water revenue bonds? And actually, we're not really moving to water revenue bonds. Again, as we talked about at first, we are talking about water utility projects. But again, these would be actually under the GO bonds, the way R.W. Baird has suggested it. But the water revenue, the water utility would pay for the principal and interest associated with that, closing costs, et cetera. So Justin, Elm Street?
Yeah, yep. Well, I guess I'll back up even further. I mean, you can see the Fulton Street, that's replacing water mains. Again, that's further out. But Elm Street is on there as well. That includes new service lines to the existing homes in that new water main going underneath the railroad tracks on Holbeck. Replacing the mower, again, that's a three-way share between street, sewer, and water. A new pickup truck, which I don't have ready for me. We have 4 pickup trucks. 2 of them are, one of them is 2009, one 2008. We would be replacing the one that's 2009. It's generally agreed to be in worse condition, so truck 291. So Hillcrest realignment, that was that agreement with the property owner on the corner to realign our utilities. So when Hillcrest was moved in 2011, the utilities stayed put, and now it's intersecting that property. So we came to agreement to move those utilities so we could foster development on that corner lot.
Which was talked about at our last council meeting, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Any questions on those? If not, Justin, your show continues with wastewater treatment plant.
All right, so Fulton Street, once again, that's the sewer share, replacing mains. Elm Street, once again, we would be looking to reline the existing mains from Wesley to Holbeck. We are looking to extend a new sewer line west of Wesley. There's not one currently there, and pick up some future customers to the west and provide a service to some vacant land that's also there. Replace more, that's the sewer's third share. The Hillcrest alignment is the same thing, but instead of a water line, this is moving a sewer line. The impact there is just less to this budget, what we have to do. Bowlby Lift Station is our big project that we have just started. We are doing a preliminary / feasibility study right now. We are wrapping up that report and hope to have basically the consultant we hired do a report on that at the next meeting. So from the findings of that feasibility study, these numbers might be refined next year. However, right now, the indications are they look pretty good. Activated sludge tank slide gates. There are steel gates that close so we can perform maintenance on these tanks. These have been a huge maintenance burden over the last couple of years. The guys have tried to fix them, but they are just beyond repair. And if we cannot isolate the tanks, then we cannot maintain the tanks. And if we cannot maintain the tanks, then basically we will have to replace it, which you think that number is high, just wait till you see replacements. So that's it for water, or wastewater, excuse me.
Okay, any questions on wastewater projects? All right, if not, we're just gonna move to the last piece of this for tonight. Which is also one of your handouts. Here, but I'm gonna go off my handout. Okay, so this is a look at our 2025 debt service fund worksheet. So I mentioned to you at the beginning, the number that you saw on the projections on that R.W. Baird sheet it showed the levy amounts, and it said in parentheses levy supported, and I told you that wasn't all levy supported, it was the total amount of our principal and interest payments. And this is going to show you why it's not all levy supported. So the very top line that's highlighted there, those numbers, as you follow it from 2025 to 2033, that is the plan that's being proposed as far as the levy increases. I can tell you that the debt service fund levy increases, if you were to do the math, that ends up being 1.75% per year. And that is, you saw some other projections in meetings earlier this year, and that was what was in those projections as well. So you can see going from about 1.662 to about 1.691 in 2020, from 2024 to 2025. So let's move down to the line below that that's highlighted, and that is a transfer that represents transfers from TIF 8. So this is a revenue that's coming into the debt service fund that's helping us kind of buy down what that would be otherwise. So we don't have to completely support our principal and interest payments through levy each year, because we have TIF 8 that is helping, well, it's paying back debt to the debt service fund, and that revenue is going to help us bridge the gap in the principal and interest payments. And you can see what that revenue is each year starting in 2026. If you go down to total expenditures, so the total expenditures line, now those numbers, those do coincide with what you saw in Baird's worksheet before, because those are our total interest and principal payments. And then you can see excess revenues over or under expenditures on the next, so it'd be the second to bottom yellow highlighted line. And you can see kind of what is taken out of debt service fund balance, if it's a deficit in a year or if it's added in a year. And to be honest, you know, this is proposed through 2033. You can see some positive years, some negative years. And when you see a negative year, that means that's another tool we're using to bridge the gap. So we don't have to levy that amount. Now, you can see there's some positive years, and could that be feathered out differently? Yeah, it could be. But this, you can see between 2025 and 2026, basically results in a debt service levy that increases at 1.75% per year. It gets us to the levels that we need to be at, given the plan, in 2033. And then at the end of it, it still has a debt service fund balance of about $474,000 in 2033. The reason we use 2033 in our projections is because we have two TIFs that are projected to close, big TIFs in 2033, and it's just hard to project the impact of that right now. So that's why it stops at 2033. Any questions on that, comments?
I think the one thing that you should get probably from this debt service fund balances is that, remember last year we had a long discussion about how the property taxes were gonna jump because of the additional debt that we needed to tax for. This really does show that it's leveling off now, and it should be fairly level, at least for the next 10 years here, depending on anything crazy that might happen. But this, the planning does go out that far, and it does say that our debt service should not go up.
Right. Any questions? If not, that's all I have for tonight. Again, obviously, we're not taking action, and if you have questions, if you're looking over this material and you're like, I don't understand this, or I need a little more explanation, or I don't agree with that, contact me at any time. More than happy to sit down with you.
Yeah, Aaron, thank you. Nice job tonight. I know Aaron said this, and I think it's worth saying again. department heads and Aaron and Stephanie have been working very hard to get you some good numbers here. If you would have saw the original draft of the amount that was on here and how that might have affected us, you would have been a little bit in shock at that time. So I think they did a great job of getting projects that have to be done in the next 2 years, and so that we can keep that amount at the level that we feel like our debt service fund will create. There's no doubt that there's projects out there that we all have priorities over versus others, and we have to just prioritize it on what's best for the community as we move forward with that. So, anybody else, any other comments for tonight? I think that's it. So we're just looking for adjournment.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Hagan. Second by Olson. Sorry, I'm already into adjournment, so. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Against, say no. Motion carried. Once I get in there, I can't stop, so.
That's fine.
If you want to say something, go ahead, but.
Oh, there was a discuss recommended plan for public works facilities that I don't think we got to. Maybe it was on the agenda, but we didn't discuss it.
Well, we were already adjourned, so I think
Let's do it next week.
we'll have to do it at the next meeting.
It's fine. It's not urgent or critical.
Sorry, I didn't get my hand up quick enough.
Sorry. Well, I saw your hand, but we were already in there.